This is NTV.
Welcome to this special conversation on NTV. Now, the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, IEK, is the learned society of the engineering profession and cooperates with the national and other international institutions in developing and applying engineering to the benefit of humanity. Among its objectives, the institution seeks to represent diverse interests of all branches of engineering and to safeguard the dignity and integrity of the engineering profession. Membership is drawn from practicing engineers in the local and central government departments, parastatals, private industry, consultants, among others. Now, once every 2 years, the institution's council holds elections targeted at providing members with an opportunity to elect new leadership. Now, tonight, it is my distinct honor to moderate the debate, bringing together two candidates vying for the position of the presidency. Engineer Eric Ohaga is currently the Director of Nuclear Energy and Infrastructure Development at the Nuclear Power Energy Agency. Engineer Ohaga currently serves in the Council of the IEK as the second Vice President. Engineer Lucy Mutinda currently serves as the first Vice President at the institution. Engineer Lucy is also the founder and CEO of EcoCycle Limited, a firm whose core business is the selling and installation of wastewater treatment and recycling plants. Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on set. Glad to have you. I should mention this debate will take place in 4 parts. We shall start with the opening statements from the two candidates. We shall proceed to endogenous or internal issues. Then we shall move to exogenous or external issues. And finally, we shall look at the election itself and the legal underlying pinning this exercise. We shall start with the opening remarks. And let me start off with Engineer Ohaga. Both of you, but let me start with you, Engineer. You're coming into this election with a bit of incumbency, already serving at the institution. And the question is, what have you accomplished so far, and why do you think you are best positioned to take over as president?
Thank you so much, Julians, for that question. Let me also introduce myself. I'm a fellow of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya and a consulting engineer with the Engineers Board of Kenya. I've been in the council for the last 4 years. I started as an ordinary council member in the year 2018, served in the council up to 2020, and then from 2020 I became the second vice president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and also the chairperson of the membership committee. Over the last 2 years at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, we have been able to achieve membership growth, bringing on board 2,480 new membership. We've also been able to transition 434 new graduate engineers to professional engineers. At the Institution of Engineers also, we were able to create 3 additional branches, namely the South Rift branch headquartered in Nakuru, the Northeastern branch headquartered in Isiolo, and the Nairobi branch headquartered here in the city. We also did, as a membership committee, introduced virtual interview panels, which enabled our membership, wherever they are, within this country and outside the borders of this country, to be able to undertake interviews and transition to professional engineers. Thank you, Julius.
Thank you for your introductory thoughts, Engineer Ohaga. Let me cross over to Engineer Lucy. Same question, really. You're coming in with a bit of incumbency, first vice president. What have you accomplished so far? Why are you the best person to take over the job of the presidency?
Okay, thank you very much. It's nice to be here to represent the engineers. As the first vice president, I had a big focus on branding, visibility, and really making the IEK brand known out there. One good thing we know is a well-known brand will attract many people to just be associated with it. Like if you talk about soap, everybody knows about Omo. So in my first term, under the able leadership of the incumbent president, Engineer Matalanga, I was really focused on building visibility, making the brand of IEK known to everyone so that all stakeholders that are supposed to work together with engineers, because for a vibrant engineering sector, we cannot do it alone. So we had to create this brand that is appealing to any stakeholder and even for the public to start being aware of what is the role of an engineer, because by doing so, you make everybody interested and everybody that is supposed to work with engineers get to know about IEK. And from there, when we have the interest of the stakeholders, we are able to move to the next level of prosperity. The other thing is I'm a digitally inclined person, even as I joined supporting IEK back as a graduate engineer, even before I assumed leadership. I was very keen on having digitized processes. And when COVID came, we assumed leadership during COVID. So I was among the people that were able to fast track what platforms, digital platforms that IEK could embrace to be able to continue offering our services. Why do I think I am the best for this position? Despite I know I have my very able colleague, we work together, he's brilliant, he's awesome. But if I were to say why I would be the one taking this lead, I have been currently working under the guidance of the President as the second in command, and I think I'm well inducted, well prepared. And the vision and the strategy and the passion that I have to bring these new ideas to make IEK vibrant will be able to support all the current needs that as IEK we need to move to the next level to sort all pressing issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Let me come back to Engineer Ohaga. Which is the one item in your manifesto which you deem extremely actionable within the first 100 days of assuming office?
Thank you so much. My first item in my agenda item is boosting employability and jobs prospect. And what we want to do, we want to ensure that the scale of fees for engineers is implemented within 100 days of my assumption of office. So I'm sure that will be able to be undertaken.
Engineer Lucy, same question.
So in my manifesto, I have dialogue really as one of the things that we need to initiate. And one of the key immediate issues that can be addressed through dialogue, we have the registration, the accreditation of courses within the universities, and we have the issue of graduates that have undertaken courses out there and they are not registrable and they feel wasted. So for me, that is one of the immediate dialogues, because we have two bodies all appointed by government, and the tussle between them is causing innocent Kenyans to suffer. So in assumption of office, I really want to have meetings and dialogues across all the stakeholders involved and really come up with a quick decision. What do we do with the ones that are outside here so that they become accreditable? And then as EBK, IEK, agree with the queue, what is the best way to cooperate so that at the point of accreditation of a university course, we are already involved and we give it a go. So for me, that's the first dialogue within the 100 days towards achieving a working partnership with all the parties involved, as well as a lot of dialogues to initiate with the private organizations as well as government parastatals or agencies on how we can have an MOU of opportunities creation for all the graduates that are coming out, and even for the consultants and the professional engineers that already sit in the sector.
Thank you so much, Lucy. For the sake of our viewers, let me indicate that when she talks about Q, she means the Council of University Education. When she talks about EBK, she means the Engineering Board of Kenya. Let me just remind my panelists, this is a mass media platform. You can be part of this conversation by tweeting at NTV Kenya at AmbokoJH. The hashtag is IEK Decides 2022. Let's get your conversation and your questions coming in. We shall take them at the tail end. Let me close this section of our opening statements. Engineer Ohaga, there's a pervasive view that an extraction from the public sector comes with baggage into an institution such as IEK. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you so much, Julian. I think that question is a very good one. Having working with a public service and having served in the council now for about 6 years, I've been able to associate myself with the service of the council. And the networks that are available within the public service, I think it's a very good opportunity for us to be able to interlink with the professional body. A president coming from public service is a plus to this institution. One of it is because of the resources that will be able to be allocated because of the networks that are available. In terms of fighting for the welfare of the engineers, that's also a given because the office of the president and the office of the director in charge of nuclear, those are two separate entities. Being a president, I'll be able to discharge my duties as the office of that particular president. And when I go back to the office as the director in charge of nuclear energy, I'll perform my duties as the director in charge of energy. In fact, it's a requirement by many public service that an engineer must be a member of a professional body. It is a requirement in the HR manuals. And therefore, it's a good thing that it's actually getting into the professional body so that that synergy can be realized going forward into making this institution a vibrant institution. Thank you, Mr. Julians.
Thank you, Engineer Ohaga, flipping the cards there from a liability to what looks like an asset. Let me take Engineer Lucy with pretty much the same question. And the view is that with the private sector background and coming into the presidency of the IEK, an institution where you inevitably have to work with a lot of government institutions, both at the national and the devolved levels, that you might perhaps be lacking as far as the agility and experience is concerned when it comes to dealing with the public sector. Is this a valid concern?
Thank you very much. That valid concern is much appreciated, but what we have to say, even while working as a private sector or running a private sector company, it doesn't mean we've not had engagements with the public departments. That I have had, and even the virtue that I have been in the council already for 2 years in this first term of myself being the first term, I have gotten inducted under the leadership of my senior, and even working with my fellow colleagues who work in the public sector. And I was very keen to understand that, because I knew it is something that was sort of new to me, but in these 2 years, I have really focused, been guided by my fellow council members that work in the public sector. And I believe everything is about learning, and I don't think I am underplaced to understand what happens in the public sector, because even as I run the private entity, I'm doing projects. I have to follow contracts that have been drafted following public conditions. So it's not that I'm totally new without any public sector knowledge. I am already exposed even as I work in private sector, because I am doing projects with government people and government conditions. And my 2-year exposure as a first learner has really worked well for me. I know how to write letters to government, how to send memos. And so it's a continuous learning process, and I do not find that as an impediment. Actually, to cater for both of us, I don't think wherever somebody is stationed means that it's going to impede you. It could be an impediment, but once you identify it, and we are a team as a council, so I can count on the strength of the other council member who comes from the other sector that I don't come from. So whichever way it is, it's about the passion of the leader, how smart they are, how they can leverage on networks to achieve the goals, because after all, engineering is a sector that works very closely between the private sector and the public sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for your thoughts, clearly arguing that you have the exposure and what it takes to assume this position. Let's close the section of opening statements and cross over to endogenous issues affecting the institution and engineers by and large. Engineer Ohaga, the subject of the transition rate is a very hot issue among engineers. I have received calls the entire day about this issue. So many enrolling for engineering programs, but becoming a professional registered engineer seems to be a problem. What's the issue, and what 2 or so actionable steps would you take as president of IEK to address this issue?
Thank you so much, Julians. This has been one thing that has been so much dear to my heart over the last 4 years. As a vice chair of membership committee, I knew this one was a critical aspect, because when you look at the UNESCO requirement of the professional engineer to the population that we have, currently at 50 million, requires that we have at least one engineer serving about 2,500. Currently, one engineer is serving 16,000 population. That means that we are really behind in terms of the professional engineers in Kenya. We looked at these and the numbers of our graduate engineers from Engineers Board of Kenya, and we realized that we have about 19,000 graduate engineers. And there are certain issues that are hindering the growth in terms of transition from graduate engineer to professional engineer. What we have done is to create mentorship frameworks where we link mentor to mentee. In this case, the mentee is a graduate engineer. And for the last 2 years, we have seen a tremendous growth in terms of the transition rate, having a transition 443 under this mentorship, where the demystification of this registration process is now known to the graduate engineers. There are graduate engineers who already have the requisite experience and training, but the black box in terms of the registration has been the issue. But we have tried our level best to demystify that particular process, and we shall continue to do that so that the process is seamless going forward through that structured mentorship framework. There are also a cadre of graduate engineers who don't have opportunity for internship, and therefore they cannot accrue the requisite training and experience for them to be able to transition from graduate engineer to professional engineers. So that is one aspect that we'll be able to work on. We know there are several projects that are being undertaken currently under the infrastructure development, and we want to, as an institution, to lobby for attachments and internship of our graduate engineers for at least 2 years, so that by that particular time they should be able to work on projects that will make them registerable and then mentor them to become professional engineer, to be able to bridge the gap between professional engineer and the population that we serve currently.
Engineer Lucy, let me swing to you now with the same question. What actionable steps would you take as president?
Yes, thank you very much. The transition issue is quite an issue at the moment, and maybe just to elaborate to the public, once you graduate as an engineer, you're just a graduate engineer, and you need about 3 years of training under a qualified professional engineer for you to transition to a professional engineer. And as my able colleague has rightfully pointed out, the number of the professional engineers is quite low as per the UNESCO requirements. So if somebody has to work under a professional engineer and they have to work to transition, what that tells you is that we need opportunities. Now, the biggest challenge has been to have those opportunities ready. If I look at myself when I was graduating from the university, I would have been very happy if I just left and IEK or EBK was just waiting for me to link me to a place. So as a president, when I talk about dialogue, those are some of the low-hanging fruits. As parastatals are making their budgets to Treasury to be approved and talking about the projects that they want to do in a fiscal year, as the president of IEK, I want to have a suggestion or an MOU that as they present their budgets for the year to run projects, it also covers training and a number of slots to be able to absorb a number of graduates from the university. So if we have about 350 parastatals and say 200 of them are technical, if we say each of them takes about 20 every year, we are talking about 4,000 placements. So I really want to have the data of the number of people leaving university and dialogues and MOUs with the different parastatals and the private companies each year to give us an opportunity to be able to place these fresh graduates and provide a budget in their planning that is enough to train these graduate engineers. One additional point, I'm sure it's going to come up, we have very good infrastructure projects going on in the country. We appreciate the government for the PPP approach, but as we enter into agreements with foreign countries to fund our projects and run the projects with us, I think as IEK, I want to be, as the president, to be sitting at that decision table before we sign up a contract with a foreign country, they are bringing finance. We are also very clear what number of opportunities are there for the graduate engineers to train them, what opportunities are there for the professional engineers to run the project, because we should only bring foreigners if we have clear indicator that that expertise that is coming is not totally available here. And if it's not totally available here, then we push the government to have people understudying these foreign experts so that when they leave, we have sustainability, we have continuity, and the next project, it will be our own capacity running it. So those are some of the actionable items towards transition, because it's all about opportunity creation, even as we mentor them, so that we are mentoring them how to prepare for transition, but we are meaningfully engaging them in engineering, because most of our engineers have gone to PwC, they've gone to banking, so we really have to show them value, and when they're right there at the university, engage the engineering associations and really show them the plans and the value that we are waiting to bring to them as IEK and EBK.
Thank you so much, Engineer Lucy. That takes us to a short break. We shall be right back with a lot more on this conversation on the presidential debate for IEK 2022. Stay tuned.
How was your day? Busy? Okay, if he really has to know, let's start with hot, nasty, fast, furious. Ooh, that's gotta hurt, but it's all cool. When cooling down is easy, this easy. Nice. You even took it with a smile.
What about yours?
I trust Sunlight 2-in-1 washing powder to give my clothes a sensational clean and an uplifting fragrance. Okay, bye-bye. Bye. Ndio hata nikiendesha truck yangu, nikirudi home, nguo zangu bado zinanukia poa sana. Sunlight. More than you expect.
Glovo delivers anything you want in minutes, like some crispy chicken. Download the app and order a Glovo.
Eat for $2.50 bob plus enjoy free delivery in select stores on Glovo.
The First Lady.
For once in her life, Paloma is going to do things the right way. She's in love. She wants a family. And you're going to go and ruin everything with your cheap talk? Don't miss this opportunity to be a better person than you always have been.
This is not cheap talk, Estrella. If we don't do something, that little girl will be sorry she ever trusted that traitor.
No, but I think you should be there. Maybe he's right about it.
As long as she's not going to tell me that she's going to marry my dad or that you're marrying Mariano. Well, I mean, anything is possible in this house.
Are you probably stuck on how to start or place an installment of 590k on any of Optiven's projects and get an instant 15k cashback? Call us on 0790 300 300. Kwa mua maono yako na Optiven.
My name is David Waku. I'm a professional golfer. I am most grateful to my dad. He introduced me to golf and he gave me the courage to introduce it to others. When I started, I took my shot at the opportunity to prove myself and achieve my dreams. It was intimidating, but when I got the chance to play this great game, I built my confidence and made the most of it. Like life, golf is all about patience and consistency. To win, I had to go further and work harder than all the others. The ability to be a champion was always inside me. And with each shot, I came closer to being king of the course.
David turned every shot he got into an opportunity. Start your transformative journey at the Safaricom Golf Tour.
Welcome back to the big debate where we are hosting Engineer Ohaga, Engineer Lucy, battling it out for the presidency of IEK 2022. Let's continue our conversation. Time is running out for us. Just before we took the break, I received a question which I'd like to throw at you, starting with Engineer Ohaga. All these good things they are saying, both of them are already in the IEK. Why haven't they done them? Engineer Ohaga.
Thank you so much. I think when I described my track record, I didn't state that we did introduce voluntary mentorship program, which has actually done a lot of good to the graduate engineers by mentoring them over the last 2 years. And we've had a product in the name of 434 graduate engineers coming on board. In the past, those numbers were in the range of 70 or 100. But because of that particular mentorship, which we had already instituted in the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, we are seeing fruits. Going forward, we are going to launch something called Rapid Result Initiative Mentorship that is going to double some of those numbers so that we can meet the required standards. So the foundation is already laid, but we have more to do in terms of those particular aspects.
Engineer Lucy, in your capacity, have you been doing these things you're talking about?
Thank you very much for this. We are all engineers, and we know when you have to put a high skyscraper, you need a thorough foundation done and the geotechnical studies done. So the same way at IEK, we know in the last 2 years there's been a lot of vibrancy and a lot of hopes and dreams of very great stuff to be done. So while we have been in the council, I would like to assure our members we've been laying that solid foundation. And the last 2 years have been quite very elaborate. If I pick about improving our visibility and our relevance in the society, because if you look at last year, it was the last 2 years, it's been one of the 2 years where IEK has had panelists sit in studio and discuss matters and start being heard out there in the public. So we have these dreams of the very solid policies and the things we need to achieve for opportunities creation. But when you get there with the big dreams, you realize you actually need to spend time on laying the foundation. So I would like to assure the members that as we have been in the council already as incumbents, you can rest assured some foundation has been laid, and in the next term we expect now to see tangible results, and we are committed to this. Thank you.
Great. There is concern around the architecture of the administration of the industry, if I could call it, and let me just explain that. We have the IEK on one hand, we have the Engineers Board on the other hand, and the perception is that they are almost joined to the hip. And the concern being raised here is that if you look at, for example, the medical profession, we have KMPDU and KMPDC, and we have a very vibrant union for the welfare of the medics. If you look at the lawyers, we have just one by way of LSK. The question is, Engineer Ohaga, if I could start with you, are you concerned with the architecture as it exists, and what would you do to advance the welfare of engineers, because the majority who reached out to us feel disenfranchised?
Thank you so much, Julian, for that question. Currently, as it's constituted, we have one regulator in the name of Engineers Board of Kenya, which is responsible for the regulation of the services of engineers and also consulting engineers. The IEK is a professional body that is deemed supposed to take care of the welfare of the engineers. So these two institutions are not joined at the hip, as you said, because one is a regulator, the other one is a professional body, which is voluntary for membership, as it were. And the union aspect that you are bringing on board, Mr. Julians, and comparing it with the doctors have one professional body, and then they have the union. Currently, as we speak, it's only IEK that takes care of the welfare issues and also the professional issues. And I think over the last 4 years or 2 years, IEK has been able to champion some welfare issues of the engineers, including even when we had arrest of the Kenya Power engineers. They were able to fight for their rights in terms of the road bills. They were able to fight for the ring fencing of those professions. So those are welfare issues that have been taken care of. But I know there's always a room for improvement. And going forward, we'll be able to, as an institution of engineers of Kenya, to fight more for additional welfare of our engineers in the country.
Engineer Lucy, the issue of the welfare of engineers not getting visibility, do you share that view, and what do you intend to do?
So maybe if I may say my approach or my idea. So as Engineer Ohaga has rightfully put, Institution of Engineers of Kenya is a membership association. So it's about members paying subscription, and they form an association that can take care of their welfare. So we don't have a fully fledged union for engineers. And then we have IBK, that is the regulator, that is formed by an act of government, and they are able to regulate the profession. So while we have been working together, IEK and IBK, I wouldn't say that the welfare has totally been left out, because together IEK and IBK are working on the scale of fees, which is currently at the AG and, you know, waiting to progress further. But what I would say, as it has been pointed out, there is room for improvement. And as IEK, I think we really need to ramp up. Let me not say we need to. As the president of IEK, one of my action items will be to ramp up that advocacy to sort of push IBK and give them proposals, tangible proposals. Like when I said we need to push Treasury, the Exchequer, when they're approving budgets, to be able to see that those provisions for training are provided for, then that will be my mandate as the IEK president, who will also happen to sit in the IBK board to remind IBK and work within IBK to give tangible proposals to Treasury, because I believe in government, everything is possible if you push for it. So from IEK, it will be a ripple effect to push IBK further, to really push the government further, because I believe if we put it as a priority for the government, and I hope the next head of state is watching, I think we need to really treat engineering like, declare it a national disaster, because if you're trying to talk about development for a country and engineering is not #1 in priority, then there is no way a nation can be prosperous without engineering prosperity. So that's the kind of push as the president, and dialogue, not just a push or forceful push, but rather a dialogue with all the leaders, with IBK, to really put this matter of engineering opportunities at the forefront. So when budgeting is happening, everybody knows engineering is of priority, because it's only that way that this country shall go to the next level of development.
Thank you very much, Engineer Lucy. One of the sticky issues that came to my desk today following the publicity of this debate is the issue of accreditation of engineering courses in our institutions of higher learning. And the view is that we actually have a crisis as far as this is concerned. Engineer Ohaga, let me start with you. What's the underlying problem? Is the issue the demarcation of roles between EBK and the Council of University Education? And what would you do as president to remedy this issue?
Thank you, Julius. This issue has been with us for quite some time. And initially, the accreditation of professional education was with the professional bodies until last year when that particular mandate was given to the Commission for Higher Education. And we know that there are students who have undergone this education for 5 years and they have graduated, and then they are out there, they are not able to be registered because they didn't go through accredited universities. As a president of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, now that the mandate has been given to the Commission of Higher Education, and we know that we also want a standard that will be able to be recognized worldwide. You know that the ex-country is pursuing the Washington Accord, where standards of education and practice is harmonized so that we are able to practice all over Africa and all over the world. An engineer in Kenya is equivalent to an engineer in Australia. So the dialogue between the higher education and the dialogue between the professional body, as a president, will be able to initiate that dialogue so that we come to an MOU with these institutions so that the affairs of these students who have already graduated can be taken care of and they are able to be registered so that they can start practicing as professional engineers and also moving forward as an engineering fraternity. So we'll initiate that particular dialogue, Mr. Julians.
Engineer Ohaga, before I let you go, for the sake of our viewers, could you just give us a very high-level view of what the Washington Accord of '89 is?
Washington Accord now applies to mobility of engineers across the world, and it applies to only engineers. So an engineer in Kenya would be able to work anywhere in the world because the standards of the education in Kenya is equivalent to any standards in other countries. So when I leave this country and I go to South Africa, I should be able to practice without any restriction whatsoever in terms of my qualifications and my competency. So that's what we are looking forward to. And also in terms of the technologies, we will be looking at the Sydney Accord, and in terms of the technician, we'll be looking at the Dublin Accord. So once we harmonize these particular accords, then all the technicians and the technologies again will be able to practice across the globe without any kind of restriction whatsoever.
All right. Engineer Lucy, the same issue around the accreditation of programs in our institutions of higher learning. What will you do as president?
Yeah, truly it's a regrettable situation because we have a lot of graduates out here that have already done the 5 years, but they cannot progress becoming professional engineers. So as the president, I would like to do it in two steps. First of all, we have this pool of engineers that are already out here. So as I talk about dialogue, it would be about having EBK and the Commission of University Education and even other stakeholders, including the CS himself and the CS of Education, sitting down together and agreeing on a quick, fast-solving method to get these ones that are already outside here. And of course, I'll need to get the numbers, exactly how many they are, and get them registered because they're already out here. They already did their courses. So we, as the president and IEK, we draft a recommendation of a process. It could involve either going back to the university or placing these people in a practical apprenticeship where whatever is being said is lacking in their training practically can be impacted on them, say for a period of 6 months, 12 months, depending on what is missing, so that these ones that are already out here, we sort them and they start getting opportunities to progress as professional engineers. Now, on a sustainable way forward between Q and EBK, the law already recently pronounced itself that Q should stick to accrediting university education and the quality of education. Engineers Board of Kenya is about registering engineers, consulting companies, controlling the engineering standards out here, and making sure that engineers are remaining with proper continuous training to be effective. So once the law is pronounced, each focuses in their area, but then we find a place of collaborating. So going forward, before a university education is already listed as accredited, the Q has a committee of approved members of that engineers committee that participates in accrediting of courses, so that by the time a course is already accredited, the engineers board is already okay with it. So as the president of IEK and again sitting in the EBK board, I think again dialogue between these two is critical so that we solve the ones that are already here, we get them accredited, and then going forward we do not expose children and parents spending their time and their resources to go through a 5-year course only to come out here and be told they cannot be accredited. We should sort it at the beginning before it's publicized out there that a university is accredited for engineering education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Lucy. There's a very interesting question here from @Salam Wanda on Twitter, and he's saying non-engineers are still in charge of functions considered engineering. Is there a need to further define the space of engineers? Are there existing laws and regulations guiding the practice? What would the two candidates do for this? I'm told we have 30 seconds before we take a break. We shall take that break and come back with this very question. Let me also allow my panelists to think about it and give you a comprehensive response when we are back. So we take a break. We shall be right back with a lot more on this debate.
As Dr. Funike and Mama Kayai host unscripted true life relationship experiences on reality TV show Kupatana. Nia, Monday to Friday at 8 p.m. and Kupatana every Tuesday and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Terms and conditions apply.
Unapohisi maumivu, unahitaji kitulizo kinachotegemeka. Jaribu Panadol Advance. Ikitumia teknolojia Panadol Optizorb, tembe hiyo hufyonzwa haraka na kuandaa kitulizo cha haraka dhidi ya maumivu. Jaribu Panadol Advance.
Let's get straight to it. Ready for whatever. We gon' ride. Line them up. Let's go toe to toe. Tell them pick a side. Put in work. We don't play no games. Watch it running high. Savage mode. We gon' keep it G. Yeah, you know.
When cooling down is easy, this easy. Nice. You even took it with a smile.
What about yours?
Presenting the Mama Fuas. Meet Toss Sensitive Eve. Toss Sensitive hutunza mikono delicate na nguo delicate kama za kababa. Hebu feel tu venye ni soft on hands. There's a Toss for every laundry need. Toss ya tosha.
This is NTV.
Yajayo katika NTV jioni.
Nilipofika barabarani naona mwanamume mfupi amevaa nguo za maroon. Yaani rangi ya kawa. Nimemwambia ustadhi ujambo.
Mshukiwa wa ugaidi atekwa nyara dakika chache baada ya kuachiliwa gerezani Shimo la Tewa alikozuiliwa kwa miaka 6.
We have now come to a very painful conclusion that we do not need cell phones in examination centers.
Wanafunzi wa chuo kikuu wakamatwa na karatasi za mitihani ya KCPE na KCSE. Waziri Magoha atoa onyo kali kwa wanaodhubutu kuiba mtihani.
With humility, I accept the nomination. Asanteni sana.
Mwanabiashara Jimmy Wanjigi apata hifadhi ndani ya chama cha Safina kabla ya gharika ya uchaguzi mkuu mwaka huu. Na kinara wa Kenya Martha Karua ndiye anayekupambia kigoda chako jioni hii. Tutamweka kwenye mizani kuhusiana na mustakabali wake wa kisiasa.
Ina Kathure, who is the HR lead of Coca-Cola Eastern Central Africa, to tell us a little bit about what Coca-Cola is doing to break the bias in the workplace. Hi, Lynette.
Hi, Zainab.
How is Coca-Cola breaking the bias for the women in your workplace?
First of all, thank you very much for having us here. We're very excited as a team, honored and excited to be here. As a company, we have made a commitment that we're going to be a female-led organization by 2030. So we're targeting about 50% female representation. But beyond even just within the company itself, we are very proud to be working with communities and empowering women and youth across the different markets that we operate in.
You mentioned 40% targeting women. What's your percentage of women at the moment?
So at the moment, globally, we're about 30% female representation across all levels, and we're aiming towards 50% representation by 2030.
Now, we've had some of the discussions that have come up in there are about the challenges that women are facing in the workplace. Are you, as a company, conscious of these biases, the unconscious biases, and how are you working to overcome them?
It's very true that unconscious bias continues to be something that we witness in the organization. And what we're doing is we've actually held trainings to cascade to individuals what it actually means when you're practicing unconscious bias. So it's making that awareness of what is unconscious bias, and then ensuring that in everything that we do, right from when we're even sourcing talent, is creating panels that are diverse, to recognize that that element of diversity makes women comfortable to come into our interviews and be their true, authentic selves. So it's looking across all the different processes that we have and ensuring that those processes are creating safe spaces for women to be truly authentic and to have the freedom to succeed.
Finally, I just need to ask you, you're a woman in leadership yourself.
Right.
Do you suffer from the imposter syndrome, which affects a lot of women?
Of course, Zainab, I'm suffering imposter syndrome right now. But I like what was shared earlier this evening, that you've just got to show up. You've got to show up. You've got to have that utmost self-belief in what you're bringing to the table, perhaps even bring the table in actual sense. So it's about showing up every day, having absolute self-belief and confidence that you've got what it takes, and knowing that you're standing on the shoulder of giants, of those who came before you.
Toss White hutoa madoa kutoka nguo za rangi kama red, yellow, blue, yani kala zote. Lakini ni specialist wa kutoa madoa kutoka nguo za white. There's the Toss for every laundry need. Toss ya tosha.
Good morning, Janet.
Wow, a morning person. And you are?
I'm Casey, and I'll help you with anything to do with your KCB bank account. Pay bills, transfers, statements. I'm an internet banking security ninja. And with the app for your mobile phone, we can hit the road together. Need a ride?
Let's go.
Alrighty, with you anywhere, anytime.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
At the first sign of pain, you need a solution that you can trust. Try Panadol Advance. With Panadol's Optizode formula, the tablet absorbs quickly and starts providing fast and effective pain relief you can trust. Try Panadol Advance.
And do you have any question for us?
How juicy.
Juicy.
Niko fiti maze maze niko fiti majamana mabenti wako fiti juicy.
Welcome to the tail end of this debate for the IEK presidential seat. Engineer Ohaga, Engineer Lucy, welcome back on set. We have a caller, that is Derek from Kirinyaga. Derek, if you can hear me, welcome to table your question and keep it brief, please. Derek, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can barely hear you, Derek.
Can you get me?
Yes. Just raise your voice a bit, yeah.
Yeah, my student is Kirinyaga University, and I'm taking a bachelor in construction and property management.
Sorry, we can barely hear Derek. We shall try to get back to him once we get our lines cleared up. But let me come back to the question which I was asking Engineer Ohaga before we took a break. There's a gentleman here who's asking, one of the challenges that the industry is facing, we have so many engineering portfolios held by non-engineers. Is that a problem you see? What do you propose to do about it?
That is a very big problem, and that's where the rain started beating us at this country, where professionals are not keeping to their lanes. We require that the engineers and all technical institutions are supposed to be headed by engineers. And that is our voice, and we shall continue to ensure that that particular aspect is respected by other professional engineers. You realize, even in the medical fraternity, if a doctor is operating on someone, or if you went to hospital, you expect to be treated by a doctor and be taken care of by a doctor. But in this profession, over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of attempt by other professions to get into the space of engineers. But we are saying that for us to be able to move forward as a country, and of course as Africa and even the globe, engineers should be left to do what they have been trained to do. We undertake 5 years training in the universities, and we come out here and again requisite experience to be able to undertake the activities that are related to technical. And if that happens, and we have seen in institutions where engineers are taking charge, there's smooth operation in those particular institutions. In the institutions where we have seen other professions coming on board and purporting to have experience in those technical institutions, we have seen them start declining in terms of efficiencies and also in effectiveness. So what we want to request the public, and of course even the policy makers in this country, is to ensure that all technical institutions and all technical agencies that require engineering are actually headed by engineering. And this is what we as Institution of Engineers, and of course as a president of the Institution of Engineers, we shall engage government agencies. We're also going to engage Council of Governors and also the governors as they come on board, so that all technical departments within the counties and all these technical institutions are actually headed by engineers. We have capable engineers who will be able to undertake efficiently those particular jobs, so that we can see the development that we are envisaging in our Vision 2030, and of course even the SDGs that we are looking forward to.
Engineer Lucy, same question.
Yes, I totally agree. It's important that technical agencies are headed by technically qualified people. And while many people may be wondering why, one of the obvious questions is that we need to continue creating opportunities for the qualified engineers that we have around. And rightfully so, we've been talking about opportunities. But maybe what, as a president, I will focus on is to make the decision makers or the people who draft those bills that we shall draft together, or regulations about how technical agencies are headed, maybe just to give more insights as to why should it be a technical person. As engineers, we are keen, actually we come after God. We are supposed to be ensuring the public safety and the welfare of the citizens. So if when any project is being done, if you have a finance person heading, they may just be focused just on the financials and whether it's financially viable. But when you have a technical person, they are able to see to the detail, because if you have a project, it all begins at a bill of quantities, or the things that are really needed to execute that project, and then arrive at what the cost of that project would be. So who understands better what are the details of the things, the bills or the quantities or whatever is needed to execute this project? It's the engineer, and it is in the interest of protecting the sustainability of that project, the safety of that project, because it's only an engineer who will know how many bags of cement, how much quantity of steel is needed on a road, or if we are talking about a built industry, it's only an engineer who will know how much we need to be safe electronically, if it's about plumbing. So it's important that we have them, not just for the project to be to be delivered within budgets, but also to be safely delivered, because it's the technical people that have the know-how of really what is needed to deliver the projects. And then the other professionals can come in at the other scopes of the projects, because for an engineering project, there is the financial aspect, there is the public participation, the social bit of it. So there are other opportunities for other professionals to participate within the project. But the overall head of such an agency that deals with technical projects, we believe should be an engineer who understands the details, and more so for the safety of the public, because all infrastructure, built industry is just about keeping our citizens safe. So to the leaders, we need to be aware of that for both financial sustainability and the well-being of the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Lucy. And that question takes us to the third part of our conversation, where we're looking at the more macro issues now. And speaking about technicality, the issue of collapsed buildings in this country. Let me start with you, Engineer Ohaga. In your assessment, what's the underlying problem? We keep on having buildings collapsing one after the other. Is it a failure by engineering professionals? Because some of the entities we have which oversee this are headed by engineers, and we know them. What's the problem? What would you propose to do as president?
Thank you so much, Julian. And I think that is a very hot debate because over the last many years we have seen this happening. And it is not because of lack of engineers. I would say it is because of greed and corruption that is within our society, and it's a culture that requires to change. We know that a design is supposed to be done by a professional engineer. We know we have a structural engineer, we have a QS, we have an architect. And we have a developer on the other hand who gets this particular design approved by the county government. And it's like the importance of these engineers is only required for approval purposes. And then it doesn't proceed beyond approval. Then when it comes to execution, then the developer does not engage these professional engineers. They go for the non-engineers to be able to execute these particular projects. And therefore, the quality aspect is actually thrown out of the window. And that is what has been actually ailing this country, that we continue to execute projects without the supervision of professional engineers. So we would really want to ensure that every step of the execution of these projects, especially these buildings that are being undertaken in the country, that every phase of this project has some approval process. And these approval processes are being supervised by professional engineers so that we can assure of the standards and the safety of the public. But you know, even the capacity within the county governments who are responsible for the inspection of this particular building is not there. So we shall ensure that we bring on board additional professional engineers and even involve other senior engineers to be able to inspect and carry out inspection of this building so that we ensure that the standards are always maintained. So our culture needs to change, and especially on the execution by the developer, where they don't want to involve and engage professional engineers. They only want to use professional engineers for purposes of receiving approvals. Then beyond that, they resort to their quirks to implement the project. So we need to create, as a president, we shall actually be able to create awareness amongst the public so that they know the requirement of engagement of professional engineers from design all the way to execution of the projects until commissioning when they get the completion certificate, so that we can be assured of the standard as designed. Whatever is constructed is as designed. It's not that whatever you designed is different from what is on site. So that is what has been lacking, and I think if we did that, we should be able to address this particular issue once and for all. Thank you, Julian.
Engineer Lucy, considering what is being raised as a cultural problem, which is really a soft issue, what would you do as president?
Okay, so rightfully said, the collapsing building, and even not just collapsing buildings, we saw the KPLC issue where the towers had the pylons had collapsed. So we have more issues, not just only to buildings. So it's really a regulatory and quality assurance issue. And as president of IEK, I know I keep talking about dialogue, but this dialogue has to be strategic. So being a multi-sectoral approach that will bring sanity to this industry, as the IEK president, I would like to initiate that, because we know before a building or an infrastructure comes up, you have the city council or county approvals, you have NCA involved, you have EBK, you have all these agencies that come into play when you talk about an infrastructure project. So as the president, I would like again to initiate a collaborative approach. And being a digital mind, I believe we can introduce a way of leveraging on digital, although we know we need to be on site to inspect. But we need to move to the level of, as Engineer Ohaga has rightfully said, most of the developers or most of the projects, you only have the names of the engineers at the point of approval. So as IEK and EBK, we shall recommend a way, perhaps we have milestone approvals. Before you move to the next level, in a certain level, you have those multi-sectoral officers coming and confirming that actually things have been done as they were designed. So whatever is as built is as was designed, and if as built is different, it's different because of technical variations, but not because of a developer making shortcuts or trying to cut down cost and avoid the cost of an engineer and end up providing a building that is not structurally sound. And one thing also as president, through our branches and, you know, the different branches we have all over the country, I think it's high time we also got to know we go to the normal mwananchi and sensitize to them. Why is it important to have even your village house involving a professional engineer? Because as we build our visibility, that is another part that we need to improve on. Perhaps our citizens would like to have our services, or they just don't know what is the importance. So again, through this mashinani initiatives where we have our branches, we go down there, educate the county governments as well as the public on the importance of having an engineer in your project. And of course, most developers want to see the cost benefit of having your services. So we just need to analyze how expensive is it for your building to collapse vis-a-vis having a professional throughout your project. So basically initiate a multi-sectoral approach whereby we sort of have milestone involvement and it's documented so that at the end, before occupancy certificates are issued, we are on a system looking that it was approved at this stage, and everything was okay. And even at the beginning, there is something very important, geotechnical surveys. You will find a fundi just copying what they did at another project, but I mean, different sites are different. So there is a lot of involvement that should go in before a site is actually approved to go up. So it's more of creating that awareness and the benefits of doing it. Thank you.
Engineer Lucy, thank you. We have 7 minutes to go, so let me get to the tail end of this and I think what could be my final question. There is the view that we have a lot of labor mobility, people from engineering moving into other professions. And I can tell you from my finance experience, we had lots of engineers. Is compensation a problem? And there's someone who has asked a question on Twitter. What is your thought on what is a fair pay for an entry-level engineer? Engineer Ohaga.
Thank you, Julius. And you can see that mobility from engineering to other professions shows that this particular species of a human being is a very critical species in terms of intellect. And I want to agree with you that it has happened in many a times. And the problem here is remuneration in other sectors of the engineering fraternity. And therefore you find some engineers find it fit to cross over to those other professions for purposes of earning a living. And I think that is what we are pushing, and we shall continue to push in terms of ensuring that the quality of life of an engineer is well taken care of for him to be able to be satisfied with the services that he offers to the humanity. For engineering service, you know, it's all about service. Yes, it's service to humanity, and so offering solution to the problems that exist. And therefore, this engineer requires to have some quality life so that he's able to offer that service. In terms of the limit price for this engineer, I think I wouldn't be able to quantify that, but it should be an amount that is sufficient to provide this engineer with quality life. Thank you, Mr. Julius.
Engineer Lucy.
Yeah, totally. Of course, as an engineer, having spent so much energy and mental effort, I believe we should come out here and really have a quality of life that we desire. About the minimum, I would agree it's relative, but as the IEK president, if I ever sit here in the next press conference as a president addressing the same issue, I would like to be sitting here with having data that has been collected, because I have seen engaging the people that are pinched by the shoe can really help to inform us what is the best bare minimum that we should pay. So immediately in office, we should run a survey, like what does it take for you to just, because even myself when I'm hiring people, despite the ranges that I have, I just like to hear somebody tell me, for me to exist, I have rent, I need a car, I need this. And so collect data, because I'm talking about data-driven policies, and really arrive at an average. The other thing that could be also impeding, I come from the private sector, so I have that benefit of being able to discuss that. As entrepreneurs in engineering, as we set up our firms, you know, when you're a startup, most of your funds are going to developing the company and all. So for you to be able to pay a good salary, I would implore all financial institutions to come up with special products that are targeted to engineering companies, so that from when a company is a startup, we are also able to pay our engineers, because when you're starting up your company, you want to start it on the right ground. But if you have limited resources and your focus is the product development, the prototype development, developing the market, or rolling out the product, you might find that you're not able to pay the salary that an engineer would desire. So as the president, it's high time I would like to go out and reach out the financial institutions and come up with specific products to finance engineers, and even to finance large government projects with conditions that would favor an engineering entrepreneur or a firm to be able to support the proper salary that all engineers need. And the Exchequer, as they approve budgets again, I think they need to have told their parastatals that they have determined the best pay that they would like to give from somebody that is entering to the highest level. So as budgeting is being done, the wage bill is well catered for.
Okay. In a minute each, Your closing remarks, Engineer Ohaga. Your closing remarks, Engineer Lucy. Let me start with Engineer Ohaga. And as you give your closing remarks, there's a question here. What are their thoughts on the building codes of this country?
Thank you, Julians, for that question. And I think I could start with that building code. It's a very critical aspect of our engineering fraternity. And currently it's being developed, and it will go a long way in managing the affairs of our buildings in terms of what is required. I think the one that is available is of 1978, and very soon we'll be having that particular building code, and it will be able to suffice in terms of the regulation of the building institutions. Now, in terms of the voter now, as the President of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, I want to make a passionate appeal to the voter to elect Engineer Eric Ohaga as the President of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. That is happening tomorrow, so that I'm able to propel the aspirations, the needs and the wants of the Kenyan engineer to the level that they aspire to be. Thank you, Julians.
Yeah, Lucy, have the closing words.
On the building code or my closing words?
Both. Briefly.
Yeah, so having a building code from the 1970s, clearly it means we have not progressed, and you know, a lot of developments have happened both with climate change, sustainability, and even natural conditions. So definitely, as Kenya, we need to develop our own customized building code, and of course that rhymes with the global and international standards. Now, to the voter, to the engineers that are watching, I present to you here, we are both able competitors, and we are spoiling you for choice. But why should you choose Engineer Lucy? Because I want a progressive engineering and inclusive engineering sector. And let's give it a different touch this time, and we see how far we can go, because great things can happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ohaga. Thank you so much, Engineer Lucy, for being part of this debate, focusing on the IEK Decides 2022. The election should be taking place tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow.
And please, engineers, take your vote, and may the best candidate win. Thank you for being part of this and sending your questions online. I've been your host, Julian Samboko. It's been a delight hosting you.